Folasade's hands trembled as she stared at the Instagram post. Her sister Chidinma and Jay, wrapped in each other's arms at Lotte Tower, the Busan skyline glittering behind them like 1,000 broken promises. The caption read, "Finally found my person," with a heart emoji. 6 weeks. It had been exactly 6 weeks since Jay broke up with her, and now this. She threw her phone across the studio, watching it skitter across the concrete floor. The textile she'd been working on, a fusion of deep indigo adaya patterns and delicate Korean pojagi stitching, lay abandoned on her work table. Every thread she'd woven into it over the past month suddenly felt pointless. But let's go back. Let's go back to when everything was perfect, when Folasade still believed in love and family loyalty. Let's go back 7 months, to the night that started everything. If you're loving this story already, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. The Haeundae Beach Art Gallery was packed that evening. Folasade stood beside her exhibition, explaining her latest collection to a group of Korean art collectors. She wore a burnt orange wrapper dress that complemented her dark skin, her locks swept up in an elegant bun, and she felt alive, powerful, like she was exactly where she belonged. That's when she saw him. Jay stood at the entrance, his sharp jawline caught in the gallery lighting, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit. Their eyes met across the room, and something shifted in the air. He walked toward her slowly, deliberately, never breaking eye contact. "These pieces," he said, his voice smooth and deep, gesturing to her textiles. "They're extraordinary. The way you've combined Yoruba techniques with Korean aesthetics, it's like watching 2 worlds fall in love." Folasade felt heat rise to her cheeks. "That's exactly what I was going for. How did you know they were Yoruba techniques?" "I did my research before coming," Jay smiled, and it transformed his entire face from intimidating to warm. "When I see something beautiful, I want to understand it completely." They talked for 2 hours straight. About art, about her Nigerian heritage, about his suffocating family expectations in the shipping business, about Busan's hidden gem restaurants, about everything and nothing. When the gallery finally closed, Jay walked her along Haeundae Beach, their shoes dangling from their hands as they felt the cool sand between their toes. "I've never met anyone like you," Jay said, stopping to face her. The moon reflected off the water behind him, and the moment felt cinematic, unreal. "You barely know me," Folasade teased, but her heart was racing. "Then let me know you. Let me know everything." He cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheekbone, and when he kissed her, the world disappeared. His lips were soft but insistent, tasting faintly of the wine they'd shared at the gallery. Folasade's hands found his chest, feeling his heartbeat thunder beneath her palms. The kiss deepened, and she felt herself melting into him, 7 months of loneliness evaporating in that single moment. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Jay pressed his forehead against hers. "I'm all in, Folasade. If you'll have me, I'm all in." And God help her, she believed him. The next 7 months were magic. Jay showed up to every exhibition, every pop-up market, every late night in her studio. He brought her favorite Nigerian chin-chin from the African store in Siamayan, learned to cook jollof rice with her, badly, laughing as they burned the bottom of the pot. He held her when she cried about missing Lagos, about feeling like she existed between 2 worlds without fully belonging to either. "You don't have to choose," he whispered one night, tangled up in her sheets, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "You can be all of it. Nigerian, Korean, artist, woman, everything. You're not a fraction, Folasade. You're a whole universe." She rolled over to face him, studying his features in the dim light filtering through her apartment window. "Your family doesn't know about me, do they?" Jay's expression tightened slightly. "They're complicated. My father especially. But I'm working on it. I promise." "Jay." She sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "I'm not asking to marry you tomorrow. But 7 months is a long time to be someone's secret." He reached for her hand, bringing it to his lips. "You're not a secret. You're the best thing in my life. Let me handle my father, okay? Just give me a little more time. She should have seen the red flag. But she was drowning in him, in the way he looked at her like she hung the moon. In the future they painted together in whispered conversations. So she gave him time. Month 7 rolled around, and Folasade decided to force the issue gently. Bring Jay to Sunday dinner, she told her mother over the phone. I want you all to meet him. Her family home in Gwangali was chaotic and warm, filled with the smells of her mother's cooking and her father's booming laugh. Her younger sister Chidinma arrived an hour late, as usual, dressed head to toe in Chanel, her perfectly straightened hair cascading down her back. Sorry, Chidinma breezed in, barely acknowledging Folasade before her eyes landed on Jay. Something flickered across her face, something Folasade would replay in her mind 1,000 times later. So you're the famous Jay. Folas kept you hidden away like a precious gem. Chidinma, Folasade warned, recognizing her sister's predatory smile. But Jay stood, ever the gentleman, shaking Chidinma's hand. It's wonderful to meet you. Folasade talks about you all the time. Does she? Chidinma's eyes sparkled with mischief as she settled into the seat directly across from Jay, ignoring the empty chair beside Folasade. I hope she warned you about me. I'm the troublemaker of the family. Dinner was excruciating. Chidinma monopolized the conversation, asking Jay pointed questions about his family business, laughing too loudly at his polite responses, touching his arm unnecessarily when making a point. Folasade watched her boyfriend's face, trying to read his reactions, but he remained frustratingly neutral, polite to everyone. After dinner, Folasade cornered Chidinma in the kitchen. What the hell was that? What was what? Chidinma's innocent act was paper-thin. You were flirting with my boyfriend, Chidi. Don't insult my intelligence. Chidinma leaned against the counter, examining her manicured nails. I was being friendly. Maybe if you weren't so insecure, you wouldn't see threats everywhere. I'm not insecure. I'm protecting what's mine. Yours. Chidinma laughed, a sharp sound that made Folasade's stomach drop. Fola, you don't own people. If Jay can be stolen, then maybe he was never really yours to begin with. Folasade's best friend Yejin pulled her aside before she left that night. Yejin had been watching the whole dinner unfold with concerned eyes, her camera hanging forgotten around her neck. I don't trust your sister around him, Fola. I've seen that look before. Chidinma's just being Chidinma, Folasade said, but her voice lacked conviction. She loves attention. It doesn't mean anything. I hope you're right, Yejin said quietly. But watch your back. The cracks started small. Jay cancelled their Wednesday date night, citing an emergency board meeting. Then he missed her opening at the Shinsky department store, apologizing profusely through text. His calls became shorter, his visits less frequent. When they did see each other, he seemed distracted, distant, like his mind was somewhere else entirely. Are we okay? Folasade asked one night, 2 months after the family dinner. They were in his car overlooking Gwangangan Bridge, the diamond lights reflecting off the water. It should have been romantic. Instead, it felt like a funeral. Jay's hands gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Folasade, you're incredible. You know that, right? That sounds like a breakup speech. My family needs me to focus on the business right now. The merger with the Japanese shipping company, it's complicated, and my father expects. I don't care what your father expects, Folasade interrupted, her voice rising. I care what you want. Do you still want me? The pause was too long. That pause told her everything. You deserve someone who can give you more time, more attention. Someone who doesn't have the weight of family expectations crushing them. So that's it. Tears blurred her vision. 7 months, and you're just done? I'm sorry. Jay wouldn't meet her eyes. I'm so sorry, Folasade. She got out of the car without another word, called a taxi, and cried the entire ride home. Yejin came over immediately, holding her while she sobbed into her shoulder, bringing tissue after tissue, saying nothing because what was there to say? The next 6 weeks were a blur. Folasade threw herself into work, taking on a massive commission for the Busan International Film Festival. She created textiles that reflected her pain, dark blues and violent reds, patterns that looked like they were tearing themselves apart. Her mother called regularly, but Folasade kept the conversations brief. She couldn't bear to talk about it. Chidinma, she noticed, had stopped calling altogether. Then came that terrible night, 6 weeks after the breakup, when Folasade made the mistake of opening Instagram. And there they were, Jay and Chidinma, her ex-boyfriend and her sister, looking at each other the way Jay used to look at her. The comments were even worse. Friends and family congratulating them, heart emojis flooding the post. Such a beautiful couple. Finally, Jay found someone from a good family. That last one made Folasade want to throw up. Her family. As if she wasn't part of the same family. Her phone buzzed. The family group chat was exploding. Her mother, Chidinma, this is wonderful news. When did this start? Her father, we should celebrate. Bring Jay over for dinner this weekend. Her aunt, 2 sisters, one after the other? How modern. Folasade's hands shook as she typed. Did any of you think to ask me how I feel about this? The chat went silent. Then Chidinma's private message popped up. Don't be dramatic, Fola. It's been 6 weeks. Move on. Move on. As if her sister hadn't been circling her relationship like a vulture, waiting for the moment to strike. As if the family wasn't celebrating her humiliation like it was a victory. Folasade called Yejin. You were right. You were so right. I'm coming over. Don't do anything stupid. But Folasade was already grabbing her keys, already driving to Gwangali Beach where she knew Chidinma would be. Her sister had a favorite spot, a bench overlooking the water where she went to take Instagram photos during golden hour. And there she was, posing in a white sundress, the sunset painting her in warm orange light. Folasade. Chidinma's smile faltered when she saw her sister's face. I was going to call you. When? Folasade's voice was ice. When were you going to call me? Before or after you slept with my boyfriend? Ex-boyfriend, Chidinma corrected, and that casual cruelty was almost worse than the betrayal itself. And for the record, we waited until after you broke up. Waited. The word tasted like poison. So you were planning this? Even when we were together, you were planning? God, Fola, you're so paranoid. Chidinma rolled her eyes. Jay and I just connected, okay? We started talking after that dinner, realized we had so much in common. He understood the pressure of family expectations, the weight of living up to a certain standard. You wouldn't understand that. I wouldn't understand. Folasade felt like she was watching the conversation from outside her body. I've spent my entire life trying to make this family proud while being myself. But that's not the same as understanding your brand of shallow social climbing, is it? Chidinma's expression hardened. At least I don't pretend to be something I'm not. You walk around in your African prints and your natural hair like you're making some statement, but you're just as desperate for approval as the rest of us. The difference is, I'm honest about it. You stole my boyfriend, Chidinma. My boyfriend. How is that honest? I didn't steal anyone. Chidinma's voice rose to match hers. He chose me, Fola. He looked at both of us and chose me. Maybe that should tell you something about yourself. The slap came before Folasade could think. Her palm connected with Chidinma's cheek, the sound echoing across the beach. They stared at each other in shock, Chidinma's hand flying to her reddening face. Don't you ever, Folasade's voice shook with rage, ever suggest that I wasn't enough. You're a snake, Chidinma. You saw something I had, something that made me happy, and you couldn't stand it. So you took it. Get over yourself, Chidinma spat back, eyes blazing. You want to know the truth? Jay told me you were too intense, too needy, always making everything about your identity crisis. He said dating you felt like work. With me, he can just breathe. Each word was a knife. Folasade turned and walked away before Chidinma could see her break down completely. She drove home in a daze, her sister's words echoing in her head. Too intense. Too needy. Identity crisis. Was that really how Jay saw her? Had she been so blind? The next morning, her mother called. Folasade, we need to talk about last night. You mean about how my sister is dating my ex-boyfriend and the entire family is celebrating it? It's been 6 weeks, sweetheart. I know it hurts, but Chidinma has a right to be happy too. And you know how hard it's been for her to find someone serious. Jay's family is very well connected. So that's what this is about. His connections. Folasade felt sick. Mom, do you even care how I feel? Of course I care. But I also think you're being a bit dramatic. These things happen. You'll find someone else. Right. Someone else. Folasade hung up and immediately blocked the family group chat. For 3 weeks, she barely left her studio apartment in Siamayan. Yejin brought food, sat with her in silence, held her when the crying jags hit at 3 in the morning. The textiles Folasade created during this period were violent, beautiful things, fabric screaming in color and pattern, rage made tangible. These are incredible, Yejin said quietly, photographing one particularly striking piece. Heartbreak looks good on your art, even if it's killing you. I hate that you're right, Folasade whispered. The email came on a Tuesday morning, subject line, Design Opportunity, Lee Foundation Annual Gala. Folasade almost deleted it as spam until she saw the sender. Lee Sung-go, director of the Lee Foundation. She opened it with trembling hands. The foundation wanted her to lead the design vision for their annual charity gala, a major cultural event that drew Korea's elite. The theme was cultural bridges, and they specifically wanted her Afro-Korean fusion aesthetic. The fee being offered was more than she'd made all year. There was a phone number for a video consultation. Folasade stared at it for 10 minutes before calling. Lee Sung-go's face appeared on screen, and Folasade's heart stopped. She'd seen this face before, in photos at Jay's apartment, in the background of his social media. This was Jay's father. The powerful, terrifying patriarch who ran one of Busan's largest shipping empires and half the city's cultural institutions. Ms. Kellerman, he said, his voice deep and measured. Thank you for taking my call. Mr. Lee. Folasade tried to keep her voice steady. I have to ask, are you aware that I used to date your son? A slight smile crossed his face. I'm aware. I'm also aware that my son is a fool who let an extraordinary woman slip away. But this isn't about him. I saw your work at Shinseki. The fusion of Yoruba attire techniques with Korean bourgeoisie, the way you honor both traditions without diluting either, it's exactly what this gala needs. Your personal history with my son is irrelevant to your talent. I'm not sure it's appropriate. Ms. Kellerman, Sung-go interrupted gently. I'm offering you the opportunity of your career. Yes, there's a personal connection that makes it complicated. But I'm asking you to consider whether you're willing to let my son's bad decisions limit your professional growth. You're better than that. Folasade found herself nodding. What would the collaboration look like? 6 weeks of intensive work. You'd be working primarily with me, as I oversee all Foundation creative projects. We'd meet regularly to develop the vision, source materials, coordinate with other vendors. It's demanding, but I suspect you're up for the challenge. Something in his tone, respectful but confident in her abilities, made the decision for her. I'm in. Excellent. We start Monday. Working with Lee Sung-go was nothing like Folasade expected. Where his son had been charming but ultimately superficial, Sung-go was direct, thoughtful, genuinely interested in the why behind her creative choices. During their first meeting at the foundation offices, he asked her about her grandmother's attire techniques, about what specific patterns meant in Yoruba culture, about how she'd learned to integrate them with Korean aesthetics without appropriating or diluting either tradition. My father wanted me to be an artist, Sung-go shared during their third meeting, his fingers tracing the edge of one of her sample fabrics. A painter, specifically. He thought business was beneath our family's legacy. But my mother convinced him that someone needed to preserve the family empire. So I painted in secret for years, until I didn't anymore. Until I forgot what it felt like to create something for its own sake. Do you regret it? Folasade asked. Every day. His honesty surprised her. But I'm trying to make amends now, supporting artists like you, creating spaces for culture to flourish. It's not the same as creating myself, but it matters. They worked late nights, sometimes until the foundation offices were empty except for them and the cleaning staff. Sungo asked her opinion on everything, deferred to her artistic vision, pushed her to take risks she wouldn't have taken otherwise. He told her stories about Korean textile traditions, about his own mother's pojagi work, about the history woven into every stitch. You remind me of her, he said one night, watching Folasade work. My mother. She had that same fierce dedication to her craft, that same refusal to compromise her vision for anyone's comfort. Folasade looked up from her stitching. That's one of the kindest things anyone's said to me in months. Then people haven't been looking at you properly, Sungo replied simply. The gala itself was a triumph. Folasade's designs transformed the Paradise Hotel's grand ballroom into a breathing work of art. Massive fabric installations hung from the ceiling, Yoruba indigo patterns bleeding into Korean pojagi geometries, creating shadows and light that shifted as people moved through the space. The fusion felt natural, intentional, like the two cultures had always been meant to dance together. Sungo found her during the cocktail hour, pride evident in his expression. You've outdone yourself, Ms. Kellerman. This is remarkable. We did this together, Folasade said, but her cheeks warmed at his praise. No. I provided resources and got out of your way. This vision, this execution, it's entirely yours. Own it. During his speech to the assembled guests, Korea's cultural elite in their designer best, Sungo publicly praised her work, calling her one of the most innovative textile artists in Asia, and a bridge builder in the truest sense. Folasade stood in the back, overwhelmed, as hundreds of eyes turned to find her, as applause filled the room. She didn't see the photographers. Didn't notice the society bloggers taking careful notes, zooming in on the way Sungo smiled at her, the way he touched her shoulder briefly before returning to the podium. She was too busy trying not to cry from the sheer validation of it all, the recognition she'd craved her entire career finally manifesting. The first article dropped 2 days later. Lee Sungo's mystery woman. Who is the young designer stealing the tycoon's heart? The photos made everything look intimate, conspiratorial. Sungo leaning close to explain something about a fabric sample became a whispered secret between lovers. His hand on her shoulder became a possessive touch. Their late-night work sessions became romantic rendezvous. The second article was worse. From son to father, Folasade Kellerman's alleged pattern of dating within the Lee family. They dug up her relationship with Jay, spun a narrative about her being a social climber, moving up the family ladder, using her art as a way to infiltrate wealthy families. The comments were vicious. Gold digger. How desperate can you be? These African women come to Korea and think they can trap our men. The racism was explicit, unfiltered, brutal. Her Instagram was flooded with hate messages, her email overwhelmed with vitriol. Chidinma's message came that afternoon. Really, Fola? His father? You're actually insane. You need help. Then the family calls started. Her mother, hysterical. What have you done? The whole community is talking about this. Her father, disappointed. We raised you better than this, Folasade. Her aunt. You're bringing shame to the family name. No one asked if the rumors were true. No one asked how she was doing. They just assumed, judged, and condemned. Yejin found her curled up in her studio, phone turned off, crying so hard she could barely breathe. Hey, I'm here. I've got you. They think I'm sleeping with him, Folasade gasped between sobs. My own family thinks I'm some kind of predator, working my way through the Lee family like it's a game. And the comments, Yejin, the things they're saying about me, about black women, about... Stop reading them. Stop looking at any of it. But my career, my reputation. Your career is based on your talent, not on gossip blog speculation. Anyone who matters knows that. But it didn't feel that way when Folasade walked through Siamayan Market the next day and felt people staring, whispering. When the owner of her favorite cafe gave her a cold look. When a group of ajumas loudly discussed shameless women, just as she passed by. Sungo called her that evening. Ms. Kellerman, I've seen the articles. I'm handling it. How exactly do you handle this? Folasade's voice was hollow. How do you handle everyone thinking I'm a gold-digging whore who seduced you for your money? By telling the truth. My lawyers are already drafting cease and desist letters to the major publications. I'm releasing a statement tomorrow clarifying the nature of our professional relationship. And I'm meeting with your family. What? No, Mr. Lee, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because this is partially my fault. I should have anticipated this reaction, should have been more careful about how our collaboration was perceived. I won't let you take the fall for my oversight. It's not your responsibility to defend me to my family. Perhaps not, Sungo said quietly. But someone should. And since they're not doing it themselves, I will. Folasade didn't know whether to be grateful or mortified. Before she could respond, there was pounding on her door. She opened it to find her entire family crammed into her building's narrow hallway. Her mother, father, Chidinma, even her aunt and uncle. We need to talk, her mother said, pushing past her into the apartment. Right now. Folasade closed the door slowly, feeling like she was about to face a firing squad. Her family arranged themselves around her small living room, a tribunal of disappointed faces. Chidinma sat primly on the arm of the couch, her expression a mix of vindication and disgust. Explain yourself, her father demanded. Explain how you went from dating Jay to apparently seducing his father. I didn't seduce anyone. Folasade's voice cracked. We worked together on a professional project. That's it. We were never romantic, never inappropriate. But none of you bothered to ask me that, did you? You just assumed the worst. Can you blame us? Chidinma interjected. The photos look pretty damning, Fola. And let's be honest, you've always been dramatic about me and Jay. Maybe this is your twisted way of getting revenge. The accusation was so absurd, so cruel, that Folasade actually laughed. Revenge? You think I orchestrated an entire charity gala, built a professional relationship with one of the most respected men in Busan, all to get back at you? You really think you're that important to my life? Don't talk to your sister that way, her mother snapped. My sister. Folasade's voice rose to a shout. The sister who stole my boyfriend? The sister who's been posting couple photos on Instagram like she won a prize? The sister who told me Jay thought I was too intense, too needy, too much? That sister. The room went quiet. Her mother looked between them, confused. Chidinma, you said she knew about you and Jay before. I lied, Folasade said flatly. Chidi started circling Jay at that family dinner 7 months ago. She was flirting with him right in front of me, planning this whole thing while I was still with him. And when he dumped me with some excuse about work being too busy, she swooped in exactly 6 weeks later. But none of you asked me how I felt. You just congratulated her and expected me to smile and pretend my heart wasn't broken. You're being melodramatic, Chidinma said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. Jay and I connected naturally. You can't help who you fall for. You fell for him during the appetizer course of our family dinner, Folasade shot back. I watched you, Chidi. I watched you decide he was worth more than our relationship as sisters. And you know what the worst part is? None of you cared. Not one of you called to check on me. But the second there's a scandal that might embarrass the family, here you all are, ready to blame me. That's not fair, her father said. We were trying to give you space to grieve the relationship. By celebrating my replacement? By throwing dinner parties for Chidinma and Jay? By posting on social media about how perfect they are together? Folasade felt tears streaming down her face but couldn't stop them. I saw every single post, every comment, every family group chat message. You weren't giving me space. You were erasing me. Her mother reached for her, but Folasade stepped back. Don't touch me and pretend you care now. You want to know the truth about Lee Sung-go? He's been kinder to me in 6 weeks than any of you have been in 6 months. He respects my work, values my opinion, treats me like I matter. When I told him about my grandmother's Adaya techniques, he listened like every word was precious. When I explained what it felt like to exist between 2 cultures, he understood. He sees me, actually sees me, and there's nothing romantic about it. It's just basic human decency, something my own family apparently can't manage. Before anyone could respond, there was a knock at the door. Folasade opened it to find Lee Sung-go standing there, immaculate in a charcoal suit, his expression carefully neutral. Behind him stood a man in a similar suit, clearly legal counsel. Mr. Lee, Folasade's father stood immediately, suddenly deferential in the presence of such obvious power. Mr. Kellerman, Sung-go nodded politely before turning to Folasade. Ms. Kellerman, I apologize for arriving unannounced, but I believe we need to clear some things up with your family present. He walked into the apartment with quiet authority, and everyone instinctively made space for him. Even Chidinma sat up straighter, her earlier bravado evaporating. I'm going to be very direct, Sung-go began, his voice calm but carrying an edge that made it clear he was not to be interrupted. My relationship with Ms. Kellerman is and has always been strictly professional. She is an extraordinarily talented artist whom I hired for a major foundation project. We worked together extensively because the project demanded it, and because her vision deserved my full attention and resources. At no point was our interaction inappropriate, romantic, or anything other than a mentor supporting a mentee's exceptional work. The photos, Chidinma started, were taken out of context by gossip publications looking for a scandal. Sung-go cut her off. My legal team is already pursuing action against those publications for defamation. But I'm not here to discuss the media. I'm here to discuss your treatment of your daughter and sister. The room froze. Nobody spoke to the Kellerman family like this, especially not about family business. Sir, with respect, this is a private family matter, Folasade's father said carefully. It stopped being private when your family's reaction to baseless rumors became part of the public narrative, Sung-go replied. Do you know what your daughter has endured these past few days? Death threats. Rape threats. Racist attacks so vile I won't repeat them in polite company. She's been called every degrading name imaginable, had her character assassinated publicly, and through it all, not one member of her family stood up to defend her. Instead, you came here to accuse her of the very things the gossip rags invented. We were just trying to understand, her mother began. Did you ask her for her side before arriving to understand? Did you offer support, protection, love? Or did you assume guilt and come here to extract a confession? Sung-go's gaze swept across all of them, and even Folasade felt the weight of it. Your daughter has more integrity in her smallest finger than most people I've encountered in decades of business. She's talented, dedicated, and has built something extraordinary despite having to navigate both Korean and Nigerian cultural expectations that often contradict each other. She deserves your pride, your protection, and your unwavering support. Instead, you've given her judgment and shame. Now wait just a minute, Folasade's father's voice rose. You don't know our family dynamics. I know that when Ms. Chidinma began a relationship with my son immediately after he ended things with Ms. Folasade, this family celebrated rather than questioned the timing. I know that my son, who I love but whose character flaws I'm well aware of, was pressured by me to pursue relationships that looked good for the family business rather than relationships that fed his soul. Ms. Folasade didn't fit our family's narrow idea of appropriate because she refused to diminish herself. So Jay, weak as he is, Let her go and chose someone who would play the game. That's on me and my son, not on Ms. Folasade. And it's certainly not something Ms. Chidinma should be proud of. Chidinma's face flushed red, but she didn't dare respond. Here's what's going to happen, Sungo continued. You're going to leave this apartment and think very carefully about the daughter you failed. If you choose to repair this relationship, you'll do so on her terms, with genuine apologies and changed behavior. If you choose to continue down this path of judgment and conditional love, you'll do so knowing that Ms. Folasade has people in her corner who actually value her. And if I hear about any of you spreading rumors, making accusations, or treating her with anything less than the respect she deserves, you'll find that I can make life in Busan very uncomfortable for people who cross me. Am I clear? The silence was deafening. Folasade's father looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Her mother had tears in her eyes, though whether from shame or anger, Folasade couldn't tell. Get out, Folasade said quietly. When nobody moved, she said it louder. Get out of my apartment. All of you. They filed out slowly, Chidinma last, pausing at the door like she wanted to say something before thinking better of it. When the door finally closed, Folasade collapsed onto her couch, emotionally exhausted. Sungo sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. I hope I didn't overstep. You just verbally destroyed my entire family in my living room, Folasade said, then looked at him. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. He smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually stern face. They needed to hear it. And you've been far too kind to people who don't deserve your kindness. Over the next 6 months, Folasade rebuilt her life on her own terms. The scandal died down after Sungo's legal team made good on their threats and several publications ran retractions. Her career, if anything, benefited from the attention. Galleries that had never responded to her emails suddenly wanted meetings. Commission requests flooded in. She heard through mutual friends that Jay and Chidinma's relationship imploded spectacularly. Apparently, Jay had proposed to Chidinma 3 months in, and she'd posted about it constantly, already planning an elaborate wedding. Then Jay's father told him in no uncertain terms that he would not support a marriage to someone who had betrayed her own sister, that it reflected poorly on Jay's character and judgment. Jay broke off the engagement, Chidinma went scorched earth on social media, and both families ended up embarrassed. Folasade felt nothing when she heard the news. Not vindication, not satisfaction, just a distant sort of pity for who she used to be, the woman who thought Jay's love was worth fighting for. Her family tried to reach out multiple times. Cards, flowers, requests to meet for coffee. Folasade responded to none of them. She wasn't ready, might never be ready, and that was okay. Yejin supported her completely, filling the space her family used to occupy with chosen family who actually showed up. Sungo became a mentor in truth, introducing her to other artists, helping her navigate the complex world of Korean art institutions, offering advice without trying to control her vision. Their relationship remained exactly what it had always been: professional, respectful, genuinely enriching for both of them. Now, 6 months later, Folasade stood in a small gallery in Gamcheon Culture Village, watching people filter in for the opening of her first solo exhibition. The walls were covered with her work from the past year, raw pieces that showed her journey through heartbreak, betrayal, public humiliation, and eventual reclamation. Each textile told a story, and she wasn't hiding anymore. Yejin appeared at her elbow, camera in hand. Nervous. Terrified, Folasade admitted. These pieces are so personal. It feels like I'm standing here naked. You're standing here powerful, Yejin corrected. There's a difference. The centerpiece of the exhibition was a massive textile installation she titled Idasal, the Yoruba word for redemption. It incorporated everything she'd learned, every technique she'd mastered, every emotion she'd processed. Deep indigo adaya patterns spiraled into Korean pojogi geometries, creating something entirely new, something that honored both her heritages without apologizing for either. Sungo arrived quietly, as always, standing in the back and observing rather than demanding attention. When Folasade gave her artist talk, explaining the journey behind each piece, She saw him nod with understanding. The gallery filled with genuine supporters, people who cared about her work rather than her scandals. And then, as the evening light turned golden through the gallery windows, her family walked in. All of them. Her mother, father, even Chidinma, looking smaller somehow, less sure of herself. Folasade didn't acknowledge them immediately. She finished her conversation with the collector, laughed at something Yejin said, lived in the moment she'd built for herself. Finally, when the crowd had thinned slightly, her mother approached. "Folasade," she said softly. "Your work, it's extraordinary. I don't think I've ever truly seen it before, seen you, but I see you now." "That's not my problem anymore," Folasade replied, not unkindly, just honestly. "I spent my whole life trying to make you all see me. Now I see myself, and that's enough." She didn't ask them to leave, but she didn't invite them deeper in either. They were welcome to observe, to witness what she'd built from the ashes of their rejection, but they were no longer central to her story. They were just people in a gallery, looking at art, trying to understand something that had already moved beyond their comprehension. As the evening wound down and the last visitors filtered out, Folasade stood in front of Idasol, her redemption made visible in thread and fabric and color. Yejin took one last photo of her there, backlit by the setting sun, smiling not because she'd won anything, but because she'd finally found peace. "You did it," Yejin said. "You really did it." "Yeah," Folasade whispered. "I really did." And in that moment, standing in a gallery full of her truth, surrounded by people who chose to love her, free from the weight of others' expectations, Folasade Kellerman was finally, undeniably, completely home. If this story moved you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support means everything. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? There are so many more stories to tell. Until next time, remember that the only validation that truly matters is the kind you give yourself.